On Mother's Day, my son, Marcus, a brilliant and wealthy real estate developer, arrived at my small historic bungalow in Phoenix, Arizona. He was holding a large bouquet of desert lilies, but his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. He set the flowers down on the old mahogany table, his expression gentle but preoccupied. "Mom," he began, resting a hand on my shoulder. "My wife is still sending you the $5,000 every month, right? I just want to ensure you're completely comfortable." I felt a cold dread instantly seize me. My heart began to drum a frantic rhythm against my ribs. $5,000? For the last 9 months, I had been surviving on meals from the Oasis Community Center and small, quiet donations from my kind neighbors. My voice came out as a fragile whisper. "Marcus, honey, the community center has been a real lifesaver for me." His smile evaporated completely. He stared at me, his brow furrowed in confusion. Just then, my daughter-in-law, Sarah, drifted into the living room. She was luminous in a cream-colored silk jumpsuit, silver stiletto sandals, and a heavy, intoxicating cloud of expensive French perfume that seemed to mock the simplicity of my small home. Her appearance was dazzling, but her eyes held a cold, calculated flatness that always unsettled me. She was utterly unaware that, in that very moment, the golden illusion of her elegance was beginning to shatter forever. If you are still listening, tell me where you are watching from. Every comment you leave is another step in this journey. And if this story of standing up for dignity touches your heart, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe so it can reach other mothers who need to hear it. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am a 70-year-old retired history teacher, and I live alone in the house where my late husband and I raised our only son, Marcus. After my husband passed away from a sudden stroke a decade ago, I learned to slow down, focusing on my garden of succulents, teaching occasional history classes at the community center, and simply enjoying the quiet life. I didn't have much, but it was enough until my retirement savings dwindled and the relentless Arizona heat and inflation drove up every expense. Marcus, the boy I once carried, is now 40 and a millionaire. He owns a successful chain of real estate firms across the Southwest, drives a high-end European SUV, and lives in a glass-walled mansion in Scottsdale where the annual utility bill is more than I earn. In 2 years, I was immensely proud of him, of course. I raised him to be a good mankind, honest, and grateful. So, when he walked into my house that Mother's Day afternoon, sunlight streaming onto his tired but handsome face, my heart swelled with love until he spoke the words that would change everything. "Mom, my wife is still sending you the $5,000 every month, right?" It felt as though all the air had been violently sucked from the room. My chest tightened, and my fingers gripped the edge of my simple linen apron. 5,000, I repeated, the word dry on my tongue. "Son, I've been getting by with the help of the community center." Marcus's eyes widened, his face dissolving into a look of disbelief. He glanced sharply toward Sarah, who was already at his side, her pearl-studded clutch resting delicately against her silk outfit. The scent of her imported jasmine perfume hung heavy, entirely overwhelming the subtle, sweet aroma of the peach cobbler I had just baked to welcome them. Sarah offered a light, dismissive laughter sound like thin crystal cracking. "Oh, Mother Eleanor, you must be forgetting," she said, her voice smooth and overly sweet, like syrup poured over ice. "I come by every month to bring you the money, remember?" I looked at her, my gaze steady and calm. "If you brought it, Sarah," I said, barely above a whisper, "then it must have been lost somewhere." The room fell into a sudden, deep silence. I could hear the faint, dusty whir of the ceiling fan and the rapid, pounding rhythm of my own heart. Marcus looked back and forth between us, the grey-haired mother in her apron and the glamorous wife in her designer clothes. His brow furrowed in genuine confusion. "Sarah," he pressed, "you have been bringing the money, haven't you?" I auto-transfer it to you on the 20th of every month, like clockwork." Sarah tilted her perfect head, her bright smile unwavering. "Of course, Marcus. I'm here every single month. Maybe Mother just forgot. You know, with her age, memory isn't always reliable." Her soft words, intended to dismiss me, landed on my heart like heavy stones. Old age. I had heard that phrase too many times since my husband died, from people who saw an elderly widow as nothing more than a fading portrait. But I knew my memory. I remembered every detail, every bill, every friendly face at the community centre. And I knew, with an absolute certainty, that Sarah had never given me a single cent. I simply nodded, choosing silence. Some truths are not meant to be shouted right away. They must be observed, confirmed, and recorded. Marcus stood and placed a comforting, yet clearly uneasy, hand on my shoulder. "Mom, it's just a mix-up. I will check the accounts immediately. I just want you to live comfortably, without any worries." I managed a faint smile. But something quiet and fierce had awakened inside me, a silent storm of suspicion and resolve. I said nothing more, only clearing the table and pouring him a fresh glass of iced tea. As Marcus sat back down, Sarah moved gracefully to his side, her hand resting on his back in a possessive gesture. Her cool, dismissive gaze swept over me, the look of a person who genuinely believes integrity is something you can buy. A chill ran down my spine, even in the dry Arizona heat. Sarah glanced around my simple living room, her eyes briefly passing over the old photos on the wall. Marcus as a little boy, his hair bleached golden by the sun, his smile wide and carefree. She sighed softly, a gesture of Fork's appreciation. "You've done such a good job keeping this old place tidy, Mother Eleanor, even at your age." I smiled, a real smile this time, though it was cold. "Old, yes, Sarah, but not so old that I forget what people tell me, or what they promise." Marcus looked at me, uneasy. "Mom, please. It's Mother's Day, don't be upset. I only want you to be happy, my son," I said, my eyes still fixed on Sarah. "And happiness doesn't come from the expensive things people say they've done for you. It comes from what they've actually done." Marcus froze. Sarah's smile tightened painfully before vanishing altogether. After they left, I sat alone in the quiet living room. Sunlight slanted through the blinds, casting long, sharp lines across the old wooden floor. $5,000 a month. For 9 months that was $45,000. That money could have fixed the ancient air conditioning unit, replaced the rattling refrigerator, or simply allowed me to buy fresh food instead of relying on canned goods. Instead, I had been counting down the days until the community center meal program, carefully rationing the small, kind gifts of produce my neighbors sometimes left on my porch. I pressed a hand to my chest, feeling not anger, but a bone-deep ache of betrayal. That night, I opened my late husband's old leather-bound journal, the one where I used to jot down grocery lists and notes for my history lessons. This time I wrote something different entirely: "Find the truth." And beneath it, "Do not trust a forced smile." I closed the notebook and took a deep, steady breath. I was not weak. I had survived loss, loneliness, and poverty. I would survive this too. Marcus might have been fooled, but I had not. And if Sarah thought I would silently accept being called forgetful, she had chosen the wrong woman to underestimate. I spent the rest of the evening at my small kitchen table. The house was quiet. I stared at my old cell phone, running the possibilities through my mind. Could I be wrong? Maybe the bank made an error. Maybe Sarah sent a check through the mail. No, I knew every detail of my life. There had been no letter, no check, no cash from Marcus. The next morning, I went to the First Phoenix Bank branch where I kept my small savings account. I sat across from a young teller named Lisa and handed her my passbook. "Please check if there have been any deposits from Marcus Hayes," I requested. He says he's been sending me $5,000 each month for the past 9 months. Lisa looked surprised. She typed a few lines, then gently shook her head. I'm sorry, Mrs. Vance, there's nothing. The only activity this year was a small interest payment back in January. I nodded, thanked her, and walked out. Outside, the bright morning sun beat down on my grey hair. I stood on the sidewalk, feeling as if a stone had dropped straight through my chest. No transfers, no envelopes, nothing. I went home and sat motionless. The rhythmic ticking of the wall clock, a wedding gift from 45 years ago, seemed to whisper, the truth is coming. That afternoon, I went to the Oasis Community Centre. Pastor Elias, a kind man who had known me for 2 decades, saw me sitting quietly after the seniors' meal service. Eleanor, are you all right? You seem troubled today. I smiled faintly, trying to steady my hands. I'm just trying to understand why my son's money never arrived. Pastor, he placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. The Lord has a way of bringing all truth to light. Eleanor, don't lose your faith. I nodded. But inside, faith was not enough. I needed action. That night, I opened the leather journal, and on the first clean page, I wrote, if they are lying, I will make them tell the truth through evidence. I pressed the pen hard into the paper. Under the soft lamplight, the words glowed like a sacred vow. From that day forward, I began meticulously documenting everything. Every time Sarah visited, I noted the date, time, and her exact words. Thursday, June 14th, Sarah stopped by with a small, expensive candle. Said the money was delayed by the bank. No envelope, no proof. Saturday, July 12th, called. Claimed she couldn't come due to a charity gala. I heard loud music and chatter in the background. Line by line, I recorded it all. No anger, no hatred, just the cold, hard precision of someone who had spent a lifetime reading facts, knowing that numbers and dates never lie. The weeks that followed, Sarah kept up her charade. Always flawless. Designer sunglasses, a diamond tennis bracelet, and perfect makeup. Each time she brought a small, useless gift, a fancy soap, a potted succulent, a box of gourmet tea, but never an envelope of cash. One afternoon in August, while I was tending my arid climate garden, her gleaming white Mercedes G-Wagon pulled into the driveway. Sarah stepped out, radiant as ever. She held a basket filled with expensive bath salts. I brought you these, Mother Eleanor, she said sweetly, to help you relax. Stress isn't good for one's memory. I set the watering can down and wiped my hands on my apron. My memory is quite fine, Sarah. Fine enough to remember that the last time you brought me money was never. Her face twitched a tiny, almost imperceptible flicker, but she quickly recovered with a bright, overly enthusiastic smile. Oh, Mother, you must be mistaken. I have been transferring it. Your bank must be at fault. I smiled back, slowly arranging the bath salts on the table. Maybe, but I already called the bank. They said nothing has come through for 9 months. Silence. Even the doves perched on the telephone wire seemed to stop their soft cooing. Sarah nervously fidgeted with the clasp of her bracelet. I'll double-check everything, she said quickly, then hurried back to her luxury vehicle, leaving behind the heavy scent of her perfume. I stood there, watching the pristine SUV disappear down the street, a mix of bitterness and startling clarity filling my chest. She had lied, and now she knew that I knew. That evening I wrote, Sarah, August 22nd, lied openly, nervous, left early, knew she was caught. Each line felt like a small, quiet hammer striking the hurt inside me. I was no longer the frail woman praying in silence. I was Eleanor Vance, the retired teacher who had survived, and I would survive this betrayal to reclaim the truth. In the weeks that followed, I took the next step. I contacted Marcus's firm, Summit Properties, pretending to ask about tax forms. I was put through to a financial assistant named Ms. Diaz. She couldn't share private details. But she gave me the crucial hint I needed. If funds were transferred, they'd have to land in an account under your name. If you never received them, someone might have used a sub-account bearing the same name, another account bearing my name, but not mine. The word sent a freezing chill down my spine. I closed my journal and inhaled deeply. Sarah was cunning, manipulative, and capable of charming Marcus into signing almost anything. But I had been a teacher for decades. I could see through flimsy excuses. If someone dared to forge my name, I would find them. That night, I reread every note. The lamplight fell on my shaky yet steady handwriting. I closed the book, feeling a strange, absolute calm. The next morning, I drove to the community centre, carrying a small, sealed envelope containing copies of my notes. I handed it to Pastor Elias. "Pastor," I said softly, "if one day I can't make it to service, please keep this safe for me." He looked worried. "Eleanor, what are you doing?" I smiled, gently but firmly. "I'm just preparing for the truth to be heard." As I walked home, my heart felt lighter, as if a great, invisible weight had been lifted. I knew the road ahead would be painful, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I would get back every single one of the $5,000 monthly payments they stole, but more importantly, I would reclaim the self-respect they assumed I had lost with age. As the sun set behind the distant Superstition Mountains, I sat on my porch, gazing at the burning orange horizon. In that golden light, I whispered, "Sarah, you picked the wrong woman to deceive. This old teacher still has a few lessons left to teach." I closed my journal and wrote one last line. "The first step toward justice is memory." Clearly recorded. 3 days later, just as I was watering my lavender bushes, a sudden, firm knock echoed at the door. Not the soft tap of a neighbor. This was steady, deliberate. I opened it to find a tall, serious-looking man with salt and pepper hair, dressed in a neat, if slightly rumpled, charcoal suit. "Mrs. Eleanor Vance." "I'm Mr. Harrison, Chief Financial Manager at Summit Properties," he said, offering a polite nod. I narrowed my eyes slightly. "Mr. Harrison?" "I only spoke to Ms. Diaz, the assistant." He nodded. "Yes, Ms. Diaz is my assistant. She told me about your call, and frankly, I thought you should know a few things beyond her clearance." His voice was calm, but serious. Carrying a hint of weariness, I invited him inside and poured him a glass of cool water. Morning light streamed through the window, catching the lines of stress on his face. He set a heavy leather briefcase on the table and opened it. Inside was a thick, organized folder of printed text and rows of numbers, the familiar, cold language of accounting. He slid the folder toward me and spoke slowly. "These are copies of 9 transfers, each for $5,000, $45,000 total. Recipient, an account under the name Sarah Vance, not Eleanor Vance, but Sarah Vance, using your name as a placeholder." It felt like a bucket of ice water had been dumped over my head. My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages. The papers were clear. Sender, Marcus Hayes. Recipient, Sarah Hayes, verified by the bank. Same day every month, steady as a heartbeat, for 9 months. I looked up, my voice hoarse. "Mr. Harrison, who opened that account?" "The bank said my son's transfers should have been to me." He sighed, removed his reading glasses, and wiped them with a cloth. "Your daughter-in-law, Mrs. Hayes. Every document for the subaccount bears her signature and a signed authorization from Marcus. He likely didn't read the forms carefully. She used an identity copy of you, which I suspect was cleverly forged. The system automatically flagged it under your name for transferees, even though the recipient was clearly her." I pressed a hand to my forehead, the rim spinning slightly. It wasn't just theft. It was a deeply personal humiliation. For 9 months, Sarah had used my identity, a mother's name, to steal money intended for my care and Marcus. I asked quietly. "He doesn't know any of this?" Mr. Harrison hesitated. "Honestly, I don't believe so." Marcus is dedicated, but he trusts his wife entirely and lets her handle most of the personal finance paperwork. And he looked up at me with grave eyes. She's also been using the company corporate card for purely personal, high-end expenses, the company card. Yes, supposed to be for client entertainment. But we've found irregular charges, spa retreats in Sedona, diamond jewelry, designer boutique clothing, and even first-class flights to New York, over $40,000 in just 4 months. I sat in stunned silence. The echo of spa, jewelry, and flights hammered in my head. I looked out the window. I remembered Sarah talking on my porch about how stressful her life was. Now I knew that everything she handled for Marcus included every single dollar. I turned back to Mr. Harrison, my voice raspy but firm. "If I want to expose this, will you help me, Mr. Harrison?" He met my gaze, his blue-gray eyes steady. "Mrs. Vance, I believe in justice, but I also believe in evidence. We need to prepare carefully. Otherwise, she is cunning enough to twist the story and turn your son against you. Sarah is not a simple opponent." I nodded. "I know. I've seen her do it smiling while she lies." Mr. Harrison gave a faint, grim smile. "I will help. But give me time to gather everything, all transaction histories, related documents, and secured written confirmation from the bank that the account is, in fact, hers. It will take a few days, but I promise we will have the truth." "Thank you, Mr. Harrison," I said softly. "You have no idea what this means." He closed the folder and stood. "I'm just doing what's right, Mrs. Vance, and I'm sorry to say, cases like yours happen more often than you'd imagine. Many people are betrayed by the ones closest to them." He left, and I was alone with the stack of papers. Every line of transfer was spelled out, each one a piece of cold, hard evidence. I carefully placed everything in a small metal lockbox. When I turned the key, it felt like I was locking away the last door of my shattered trust. I brewed a cup of black tea and wrote slowly in my journal. September 11th, Mr. Harrison came. Brought records of 9 transfers, $5,000 each, to an account controlled by Sarah. She is also using the company credit card for personal spending. Marcus was deceived. Not just my money, but his company's money, too. I have an ally. "The fight begins." In a low, steady voice, I whispered to the empty room, "Sarah, you forgot I used to teach history. I can read lies, and this time, the facts will speak for me." 3 days later, with every fact in my head lined up as neatly as dates on a timeline, I decided to act. I called Marcus. His voice was warm, but I heard the hint of exhaustion I now knew was linked to his financial stress. "Mom, I'm sorry I've been swamped. Sarah says she's been visiting regularly, right?" I smiled and kept my tone light. "She has, son. Sarah is very thoughtful. I'm thinking of inviting you both to dinner this Sunday. It's been a while since we've had a proper meal together." Sarah paused for only a fraction of a second, then flashed her brightest, most satisfied smile and sipped her wine. "Oh, Mother Eleanor, please. Don't be so formal. I'm just doing what I should." I nodded, pretending to be innocently shy. "I'm thrilled. I just bought a new water heater. Phoenix winters get chilly, and thanks to that money, I feel much more secure." Sarah's smile widened, smug and deeply self-satisfied. She tilted her head toward Marcus as if to say, "See, everything is perfectly fine." I watched her slowly, then asked in an offhand way, like it was nothing at all. "Oh, Sarah, I'm just curious. What day do you usually initiate the transfer? Was it the 12th? She didn't brace herself. She answered instantly, like a reflex. "The 12th of every month, Mother Eleanor. I like to get it done early." I nodded lightly. But before I could say more, Marcus spoke, looking genuinely puzzled. "Wait, not the 12th, honey. I set the auto-transfer for the 20th. I'm sure of it." The room went completely silent. That silence the moment Aliyah steps right into her own carefully set trap was deafening. If it were you facing someone who deceived you like this, would you stay quiet like I did? Or call it out on the spot? Tell me in the comments. The faint clink of a spoon hitting the bowl sounded harsh. They stared at each other. Sarah forced a strained, brittle laugh. The 20th, really? I thought you said the 12th. Marcus frowned deeper. No, I'm certain it's the 20th. I picked that day because it's the week after the big payroll clears. The room sank into a cold stillness. I smiled gently and set my fork down. Oh, wonderful. Then I'll go to the bank on the 20th, just to make sure the system isn't having any issues. Sarah gave a tight, forced laugh, trying desperately to hide her unease. Oh, Mother, you are so cautious. Don't worry, I've been sending it regularly. Marcus nodded, but his eyes had shifted. He was looking at his wife with a new, thin line of suspicion. She quickly changed the subject to a work deal and the rising summer temperatures. I sat quietly, watching them both. Inside me was a clean, perfect the calm of someone who knows she has set the exact right trap. After dinner, I brought out dessert. Sarah barely ate, glancing repeatedly at her watch, eager to escape a room she thought she controlled. I knew she was struggling to breathe. At the door, I said softly, "Thank you both for coming. I haven't laughed this much in a long time. Remember, I'll check the account on the 20th, just to be sure the bank system isn't acting up." Sarah forced a strained smile. "Yes, Mother. I'm sure there won't be any problem." Marcus kissed my cheek, his eyes gentle as always. But I saw something new there, a flicker of real, deep doubt. When the G-Wagon pulled away, I stood in the doorway, watching the tail lights fade. I went straight to my small office and turned on the computer. I opened my email and wrote to the two people I trusted now, Mr. Harrison, the honest financial manager, and Teresa King, an old college student of mine who was now an expert in financial fraud law. I typed slowly. My heart beat steady, my eyes perfectly clear. Subject: it's time to begin. Harrison. Teresa, everything is ready. I just confirmed Sarah lied about the transfer date. They contradicted each other to my face. I want us to move forward with the plan. Teresa, please start the subpoena process for the subaccount data. Harrison, prepare the comparison file. By the 20th, I want every piece of evidence lined up. It's time for her to self-destruct. Eleanor. I reread the last line and smiled faintly. Justice would come from the liar's own hands. I hit send and leaned back. The clock ticked, counting down to the 20th, the day the truth would finally crack through. 2 days later, Mr. Harrison replied. His email was short. Just like him, I obtained confirmation from the bank. The subaccount under your name was opened by Sarah with forged documents. They'll release the data once we have a subpoena. Teresa will handle that. Everything is moving in the right direction. I read it, feeling my chest tighten and then finally loosen, like an old iron gate slowly swinging open. I am not a cruel woman. I just wanted the truth spoken so my son could wake up. The next morning, the Arizona sky was startlingly clear. I sat by the window with a cup of hot jasmine tea, feeling strangely calm. Today was the day Mr. Harrison had promised to send everything. In just a few hours, every lie would have a shape called black ink on white paper. Around 8:00 a.m., the phone rang. It was Mr. Harrison, Mrs. Vance. His voice was steady and low. It's all done. I just sent you the full statements with related invoices. Teresa has reviewed them. She says with your signature, we can open a legal case for elder exploitation. I thanked him softly, trying to keep my voice from shaking. I never imagined that at my age I'd need a financial manager and a lawyer just to protect the money my son intended for me. 15 minutes later, the delivery driver knocked. A large, sealed manila envelope, confidential, Summit Properties financial record. I set it on the table and stared at it for a long moment before opening it. Inside were dozens of clean printouts. 9 transfers, each for $5,000, $45,000 in total. Sender, Marcus Hayes. Recipient, Sarah Hayes. Bold, even lines on official bank paper. I read them twice. The shock of the truth, a physical blow. At the bottom, Mr. Harrison's handwritten note in blue ink. Mrs. Sarah Hayes used this as a personal spending account. In addition to the 9 transfers, there are other charges via the secondary company card, spa, shopping, travel, and a new car lease. Total spending over 9 months, $52,100. I sat perfectly still. Morning light laid a pale gold over the pages, the color of truth. I turned to the next sheet. A receipt for a high-end jewelry store in Scottsdale for a diamond necklace. $3,500. A spa weekend in Las Vegas for 2 people. $2,800. The lease document for the new Mercedes G-Wagon with a $17,000 down payment. Each receipt was a small, sharp knife. I remembered Sarah walking into my house, perfumed and polished, holding a small succulent, smiling softly, saying, "Mother, I just want you to know I care for you like my own." I sat for a long time, breathing deeply, then reached for my leather journal, my Justice Journal. Under the date, I wrote carefully, one clear word at a time. September 20th, received Harrison's records. 9 transfers of $5,000, all into Sarah's hands. Jewelry, travel, new car. $52,100, the price of broken trust. My hand trembled, not from fear, but because I was about to reclaim the dignity that had been stolen. That afternoon, Teresa King called. Her voice was firm and precise, the tone of someone seasoned by tough courtrooms. "Eleanor, I've reviewed everything. It's solid. This is a textbook case of financial exploitation of an elder. We can go criminal or civil. Your call." I paused, then answered quietly, "Not yet. I don't want the court to see it before Marcus does. He needs to witness it with his own eyes. Only then will justice mean something." Teresa was silent for a moment. "You're right. Nothing hurts more than a son realizing his wife exploited his mother's trust. That's why I'd like Pastor Elias to help me," I said. "Arrange a small senior wellness seminar evening at the center. A pretext so they'll come." Teresa gave a soft, knowing laugh. "A staged night to expose the truth. Smart, Eleanor. I'll ask Harrison to condense the file. Give Marcus a brief summary he can't ignore." Near dusk, I drove to the Oasis Community Center. Pastor Elias was lining up chairs in the hall. After I explained the plan, he thought for a moment, then smiled kindly. "Sometimes the Lord doesn't need thunder to reveal sin, Eleanor. He only needs the small, quiet light of truth." I squeezed his hand in thanks. "I just want Marcus to see that light, Pastor. Not for revenge, but so he stops being blind." I returned home, spreading the documents across the dining table, every statement, every receipt. With a red pen, I marked the large withdrawals, then slipped them into a thick, beige envelope. On the front, I wrote in bold, steady letters, "Documents for Senior Assistance Fund." Only I knew there wasn't a single donation inside, only guilt and deceit. Round 8 p.m., the phone rang. It was Mr. Harrison again. "Mrs. Vance, I just wanted to let you know Teresa has everything ready in case you decide to file, but I respect your timing. Holding off until the right moment is wise. Sarah will expose herself soon enough." I smiled. "I know, thank you, Harrison. You've helped me believe in justice again. 9 months of deception. In one evening, it would all shatter like glass." I had never loved a Sunday evening more. The late Arizona sunlight poured over the small garden, turning the lavender and succulents golden. In the kitchen, the pot of red wine beef simmered softly, filling the house with the aroma of herbs, Marcus's favorite dish since childhood. This time I was cooking not out of love, but as part of a ritual. On the table, I laid out a crisp white tablecloth, my antique porcelain dishes, and 3 wine glasses. In the center, the beige envelope rested neatly, like an invisible guest waiting to be acknowledged. Around 7 p.m., I heard the car outside. Marcus and Sarah arrived. He wore a simple white shirt, while she, as always, appeared overdressed in a pale pink silk dress, new heels, and a string of gleaming pearls. "Mom," Marcus hugged me tightly. "I missed this smell." "Your stew smells like home. I made it for you, son." Just like old times, Sarah stood behind him, that polished, fake smile glued to her lips. "Oh, how cozy. You always make dinner feel so special, Mother." "Yes," I said softly. "Tonight will be very special." About 15 minutes later, Pastor Elias arrived, holding a large white-wrapped envelope. "Sorry I'm late," he said. "Here are the final documents for the senior wellness seminar you asked me to bring." I took it with a nod and gestured for him to join us. Sarah tilted her head, her voice syrupy. "Oh, so this really is a charity event." "Mother, I thought you were joking." I poured everyone wine, smiling gently. "Yes, a dinner to talk about trust, giving, and honesty." The words made Sarah stiffen slightly, but she quickly smoothed her expression. Marcus kept smiling, unaware of the tension rising beneath the table. Once everyone was seated, I opened the envelope Pastor Elias had brought. The papers inside were neatly arranged, Mr. Harrison's precision in every line. I pulled out the stack and spread the first sheet on the table. "Son," I said slowly, "this is a list of all the transfers for your mother's well-being over the past 9 months. I think you should take a look." Marcus frowned. "Transfers. Mom, I've been sending them to Sarah every month." I slid the statement toward him. The bold print was unmistakable. Recipient, Sarah Hayes. Amount, $5,000. Date, 20th of each month. Marcus went silent. His eyes dropped to the page, widening from confusion to shock. Sarah jumped in, her voice sweet but pitched high. "Oh, that must be some mix-up. Mother, you've been getting the money, right? Banks make mistakes with recipient names all the time." I kept my voice calm. "Is that so? Then how about this spot bill in Las Vegas for $1,200 charged to the corporate secondary card under your name, Sarah? Was that the bank's mistake too?" Her face stiffened, but she forced a light, dismissive laugh. "Oh dear. Maybe someone used my name by accident. It's an easy name to get confused with." Before she could finish, a deep male voice came from the doorway. "No, Mrs. Hayes. No one used your name by accident." Everyone turned. Mr. Harrison stood at the threshold, holding even more printed pages. I hadn't told anyone else that he would be coming. Sarah's face went instantly pale. Marcus looked at the man, confused. "Who are you?" "I'm Mr. Harrison," he said firmly. "Chief Financial Manager at your firm, and the one your mother authorized to investigate the transfers made under her name." The air froze. I rose, facing Sarah. "Mr. Harrison can verify every amount, every signature, every transaction. 9 transfers, $5,000 each. Not once did they reach me." Marcus turned to his wife, his voice breaking with disbelief. "Sarah, what is this?" She grabbed his hand, tears welling up instantly. I just borrowed it, that's all. I was going to pay it back. I didn't want to upset your mother." I sighed softly. 9 months of borrowing, and by forging bank papers under your mother-in-law's name. Sarah sobbed harder, but her tears carried only desperation, not guilt. Marcus pulled his hand away, his eyes burning with a sudden, terrible clarity. "What did you do to my mother?" he shouted, his voice shaking with fury. "I sent that money so she could live comfortably. You used it for cars, jewelry, vacations, and lied to my face." Sarah stepped back, her face drained of color. "You don't understand. Marcus slammed his palm on the table. The glasses rattled sharply. The room fell silent. Only Sarah's ragged breathing and my pounding heart filled the space. Pastor Elias, who had sat quietly through the entire confrontation, folded his hands and spoke in a low, steady tone. Sometimes God doesn't need to punish the guilty. He just lets them see their true reflection. I sat back down and looked at Sarah, my voice calm. You know, I didn't need that money. What I needed was respect. And you took that, not just from me, but from your husband, too, Sarah sobbed, stammering. Mother, I'm sorry. I just wanted to help Marcus manage things better. I didn't mean, I shook my head. Stop lying. You didn't manage. You stole. Mr. Harrison stepped forward, placing the final file in front of Marcus. These are the originals, Mr. Hayes, forged authorizations, bank records, and receipts. Keep them, you'll need them to protect what's yours. Marcus said nothing. He stared at the numbers, then lifted his eyes to me. In them, I saw pain, shame, and the first spark of true awakening. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I was such a fool to trust her. I laid a hand on his shoulder. No, son. The mistake isn't in trust. It's in those who betray it. Sarah burst into uncontrolled sobs, glancing wildly around for an escape. I can't take this anymore. She screamed, suddenly standing up. I don't need anyone's pity. She snatched her purse and stormed out. Her heels struck the wooden floor, each step sounding like the final period at the end of a sentence. Marcus didn't stop her. He just sat, head bowed. The front door slammed shut. Silence fell. No more crying. No more excuses. Only the heavy, undeniable presence of the truth. I looked at the open envelope. Papers scattered proof of 9 months of deceit. It's done, I said quietly. The curtain has fallen. Mr. Harrison nodded, gathering the files. Pastor Elias rose and placed a hand on my shoulder. You've done what not every mother has the courage to do, Eleanor. I smiled faintly. This victory didn't bring joy, only release. I went to my small office. On the desk was the official notice I had received days earlier. Case No. 23 CF 981. Eleanor Vance, Plaintiff vs. Sarah Hayes, Defendant. Elder financial exploitation and marital fraud. Teresa had moved faster than I expected. She'd sent a short message, all evidence filed. Prepare for preliminary hearing next Monday. The morning of the hearing, the sky was grey and the wind sharp. I arrived early with Teresa. The courthouse hallway was long, smelling faintly of paper and tension. When we entered the courtroom, Sarah was already there, wearing a black suit, her face pale, but her eyes feigning calm. Beside her sat a young, nervous lawyer. Marcus sat alone behind them, silent. He didn't look at me or at her. His eyes were sunken, tired, and hollow. The judge struck the gavel. The court is now in session for the case of elder financial exploitation. Eleanor Vance vs. Sarah Hayes. Teresa stood first, opening her file. Her voice was clear and steady. Your Honor, for 9 consecutive months. The defendant, Mrs. Sarah Hayes, used a fraudulent subaccount under her mother-in-law's name to misappropriate a total of $45,000. Additionally, the defendant used a corporate credit card belonging to Summit Properties for purely personal expenses, including spa services, luxury travel, and a private vehicle purchase. The courtroom went silent as Teresa laid out the evidence, bank statements, the jewelry invoice, the G-Wagon lease, the Las Vegas tickets. The defendant not only took money from her mother-in-law, a 70-year-old widow, but concealed it by forging legal documents and falsifying bank signatures. This was a deliberate, systematic act of deception. Sarah's lawyer quickly stood, trying to object. Your Honor, my client maintains. This was merely a misunderstanding in household financial management. Mrs. Eleanor Vance is elderly and may have misremembered the transfers from her son's account. I felt my blood boil. Sarah lowered her head, feigning fragility, then looked up, her voice trembling. "Your Honor, my mother-in-law has been forgetful lately. I brought her money many times, but she doesn't remember. I never meant to hurt anyone." "Maybe she just misunderstood." Teresa placed a steadying hand on my shoulder, then stepped forward, her voice sharp as steel. "Your Honor, Mrs. Vance's memory is sharp enough to have documented, in detail, every single day the defendant visited and everything she said. And here is her journal to prove it." Teresa pulled out my leather-bound notebook and held it up. In this, Mrs. Vance recorded 9 full months of visits. Dates, times, and even the defendant's exact words. I left the envelope in the car. Every line and page perfectly matches the bank transaction data. If this is what you call memory loss, then it is the sharpest one I've ever seen. The judge peered over his glasses, slowly flipping through a few pages of the file, then frowned and turned toward Mr. Harrison, who was present as an expert witness. Mr. Harrison confirmed every figure. The judge nodded, his expression stern. I looked toward Sarah. She lowered her head, nails digging into her palms, her face deathly pale. Teresa continued, "Your Honor, under the Arizona Elder Protection Act, we request that the court order the defendant to return the full amount, including interest and court fees, and prohibit her from managing or accessing any financial accounts belonging to Mr. Marcus Hayes for the next 5 years." The judge lifted his head, his voice firm and final. After reviewing all documents, testimonies, and evidence, the court rules the defendant, Mrs. Sarah Hayes, shall repay the full $45,000 to Mrs. Eleanor Vance. The defendant is hereby stripped of access to and management rights over her husband, Mr. Marcus Hayes's financial accounts. The defendant must also complete a mandatory 6-month financial rehabilitation program. This court is adjourned. The gavel struck 3 times dry and cold like the sound of a steel door closing. Sarah sank into her chair, silent tears spilling down her cheeks. She turned to Marcus, her voice trembling. "You have to believe me." "I didn't mean to." Marcus said nothing. He just looked at her with empty eyes, then turned away completely. The sight made my heart crack open. I didn't feel joy or triumph, only a dull ache. To reclaim justice, I had to watch my son lose his marriage. Months passed and Marcus didn't call. No messages, no emails, no "How are you, Mom?" I didn't blame him. I understood he was trying to clean up the wreckage of his life. Still, on quiet nights, I often found myself holding the phone, staring at the name Marcus Hayes in my contacts, never pressing call. Sometimes a mother knows when silence is the only way to let her child heal. The full restitution payment arrived one morning in June, $45,000. I felt hollow. If that money had once been a tool of deceit, it now had to become something good. I used a small portion to repair the AC unit and the roof. As for the rest, I reached out to Pastor Elias and Teresa. "I want to start a small foundation," I said as we sat in the parish office. "I'll call it Second Chance Seniors. I want to help elderly people who've been financially exploited by their own family, just like I was." Pastor Elias looked at me for a long moment, then smiled gently. "Eleanor, this isn't just kindness. This is how God turns pain into the seed of something beautiful." 3 months later, the Second Chance Seniors Foundation officially opened. Our first office was in the basement of the community center. 3 desks, an old printer, and a wooden sign that read, "Helping the Forgotten Find Their Voice Again." Each week, Pastor Elias and I met people who came to share their stories. An old woman tricked by her daughter into signing away her home. A man whose grandson drained his pension. Each story was a wound, but I had learned how to listen without crying. I simply held their hands and told them what I had lived, that the truth doesn't save you instantly, but it always arrives right on time. One crisp autumn morning, while I was watering the lavender on the porch, I heard a knock soft, but insistent, carrying the chill of a coming monsoon storm. I looked up. It was past 10 p.m. I walked to the door, my hand trembling as I turned the latch. The door swung open, wind rushing in, rain splattering onto my coat, and there, under the downpour, stood Marcus. He was drenched, hair plastered to his forehead, his eyes red and utterly weary. "Mom," his voice cracked. "Mom, I'm sorry. I've been so stupid." Before I could respond, he stepped inside and sank to his knees on the wet floor. A raw, broken sob escaped him. I knelt beside him, placed a hand on his shoulder, and said softly, "Marcus, get up, son. Everyone stumbles. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's saving yourself." He lifted his head, tears mixing with the rain streaming down his face. "I don't deserve your forgiveness. I doubted you. I let her manipulate me. I stayed silent while you suffered. Mom, I lost everything. I don't need your apology," I said quietly, guiding him to the sofa. "I just need you to remember, truth never arrives late. It only waits until we're brave enough to face it." He whispered, "Sarah's gone, Mom. She drained the savings account, took what was left from the company, and disappeared. They say she ran off with a man she'd known before we were married." He buried his face in his hands. "She only left one message: you trusted the wrong person." I took his hand. "No, son. You just realized the truth too late. But even when trust is broken, it's still what separates us from those who deceive." After a long pause, he said, "Mom, can I help with your foundation? I want to do something meaningful. Maybe start this weekend." I looked at him. His eyes were so sincere that I had to fight the swell of emotion rising in my chest. "Then come on Saturday," I said. "Pastor Elias will be happy to see you." From that day on, Marcus came to help at the foundation every weekend. He drove in early, bringing coffee for everyone, then sat with me organizing files and writing thank you letters to donors. People say time heals everything, but for me, it wasn't time. It was my son's transformation that became the real medicine. One morning, I saw him sitting at his desk, focused on fixing a spreadsheet. "David," I called softly. He looked up. "You've finally crossed your own pain, son," I said, smiling. "Not everyone has the courage to do that." He smiled faintly, a rare, genuine smile I hadn't seen in months. "If it weren't for you, Mom, I don't know how long I'd still be drowning in guilt." "I didn't save you, Marcus," I said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You saved yourself." A year later, the Texas Woman of the Year Council contacted me. I was chosen as the Arizona Senior Advocate of the Year. The ceremony was held in the Grand Hall of the city courthouse, the same courthouse where Sarah had tried to humiliate me. I chose a light blue dress, simple, like the life I now lived. When I stepped onto the stage, applause filled the room. In the second row, I saw Marcus, wearing a white shirt, his eyes glowing with a pride I hadn't seen since he was a boy. When I walked to the podium, my voice was steady. "Thank you," I began. "But today, I'm not telling my story. I'm telling the story of an unnamed mother who was deceived by her own daughter-in-law, who lost both her money and her trust." The hall went silent. I once thought that when someone betrays you, the best revenge is silence. But I learned something else. When someone steals your trust, reclaim it with truth. No shouting, no hatred, just truth. Because truth holds a power no punishment ever could. I paused, taking a deep breath. From the front row, I saw Marcus wiping his eyes. When I spoke again, my voice softened. Justice isn't just what happens in court. It begins the moment you find the courage to say, "Enough," even when the one who's wronged you is someone you love. That's the bravest act any human being can do. After the ceremony, as I stepped outside, a light rain began to fall. Marcus came up beside me, draping his jacket over my shoulders. "Mom," he said softly, "I've never seen you shine like this." I smiled, holding his hand. "It's not because of the award, son. It's because you're here, like the old days. Only now you truly understand what honesty means. That night, back home, I sat at my desk and opened my worn journal. I wrote the final line. A mother's greatest victory isn't winning in court. It's teaching her child the value of honesty. I closed the book, listening to the wind outside. The faint scent of rain still clung to the roof. On the table, the small candle flickered, casting a soft glow over the family photo. My husband, me, and little Marcus. 3 faces in one frame, 3 moments in time, bound by one truth. Love never dies. It just changes form. And if you're still here with me listening, sitting in your own quiet room tonight, I want to say this. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of my story. If you've ever faced injustice or betrayal within your own family, share your story in the comments below. I truly want to hear it, because maybe your voice today could help someone else find hope tomorrow. And if you believe, as I always have, that the truth will always find its way home, please like, subscribe, and stay for the next stories. I'll tell you about women, about mothers, about those who once fell but rose again through the light of justice and compassion. From Eleanor Vance at Grandma's True Moments.